After some flirtation with Western contacts, Japanese leaders decided at the end of the 16th century largely to close off contacts, not entirely, but largely, and emphasize a pattern of internal economic, political, and cultural development. This was the period that becomes known as the Tokugawa Shogunate, which would last until 1868. Under the Tokugawa Shogunate, feudalism persisted. The ritual apparatus of feudalism was carefully preserved along with the social privileges of feudal lords. But alongside feudalism, and in fact more effective than feudalism, began to be the apparatus of a small but definite central state, serviced by its own bureaucracy, not feudal vassals, and capable of reducing, in most cases, eliminating internal warfare, providing increasing political unity, which was in turn the framework for the rather successful expansion of commercial activity within Japan that we have discussed before. This was obviously a significant and, as it turned out, fairly durable political change in Japanese affairs that marked increasing political effectiveness and a de facto modification of feudalism that was quite significant. Cultural change accompanied this development as well. Even though Japan's intense interactions with China were things of the past, the Japanese actually, during this early modern period, turned increasingly toward Confucianism. Buddhism survived and could be vigorous in some instances. The more traditional religion of Shintoism survived as well, though it probably faded somewhat. But cultural emphases shifted increasingly to a Japanese version of Confucianism that had two consequences that would be significant for the future as well. Consequence number one was simply an increasing secularization of Japanese culture. Not an entire secularization, but as Confucianism spread, this worldly concerns began to predominate in Japanese culture, along, by the way, with some interesting new artistic forms that would mark further steps in Japanese cultural identity as well. The second implication of the Japanese version of Confucianism, though it became fully clear only in the first half of the 19th century, was an increasing commitment to the importance of education, not just for a Confucian upper class, but for broader bands of society and what we would call the middle classes and even somewhat below. Japanese Confucianism ended up, not immediately, but over time, ended up encouraging an educational commitment that would lead Japan to be the second society after that of the West in literacy rates by the early 19th century, a very interesting pattern that, again, reflects considerable cultural dynamism